Warning: the following fanfic reading is for mature audiences only. It contains graphic content such as blood, gore, death, graphic descriptions of executions, and adult jokes. Viewers' discretion is advised. Bullet point. Written by Reeve. Prologue. Let the games begin.
Dear Twilight Sparkle, it is my sincerest hope that this letter reaches you in good time. Truth be told, to this day, I remain oblivious to certain aspects of the modern age, particularly the reliability of the system I commonly hear referred to as the mail. 1,000 years ago, when we wished to have the written word reach desired eyes, we used private Pegasus couriers. But now Sister Dearest informs me that letters must be transported in batches to Cloudsdale, where they are sorted and divided, before being sent to other locations all over Equestria, before they can at least be delivered to their intended recipient. Celestia assured me this system is fast and efficient, and while I trust her judgment, I fail to see the innovation in this. I digress, however. I write to you bearing a request for a friendly meeting. I am sure you are familiar with the Arcane Manor, west of Galloping Gorge, once home to the famous magician Orchid the Omnipotent. It has been under the ownership of the Crown for over a century, and I recently felt inclined to walk its halls. Upon my visit, however, I encountered some peculiarities. I am hesitant to specify exactly what it is I have discovered here, but I believe that if it is indeed what I think it is, then you, as a fellow scholar, will most certainly wish to be here with me to conduct a thorough investigation into it. I would have brought this up with Celestia, but it would appear since my banishment she has become too embroiled in managing the kingdom to delve into the mysteries of magic like we used to. It is a shame, but I understand and respect her professionalism. Instead, I would extend the invitation to you to come and join me in exploring the possible secrets held by this place, and perhaps strengthen our ever-growing friendship along the way. If the Postal Service can indeed live up to its claim of a one-day delivery, then you should be reading this letter on Friday evening. If that is right, and you are interested in meeting, then I would appreciate it greatly if you could travel out here post-haste. I have enclosed the necessary funds to hire a carriage from Ponyville to Galloping Gorge, where it is only a short walk to the manor. I hope that you accept my offer, and I shall see you come Saturday evening. Wishing you the best, your friend, Luna. P.S. I would also be interested in meeting your friend Pinkie Pie also. I have not had the opportunity to interact with her since the all-too-memorable Nightmare Night over a year ago, and I'd like to be able to change what I believe was a poor start to a relationship. If you could extend this invitation to her also, I would be most appreciative.
Is there something wrong?
Came the all-too-chipper voice of Pinkie Pie, pulling Twilight from her reverie.
Oh, it's nothing,
she responded wistfully, not meeting her friend's eye. Instead, her eyes remaining unfocused on the letter grasped before her in her pink aura. Pinkie Pie blew a loud raspberry, obviously not buying Twilight's poor excuse for a lie of reassurance.
Oh, Twilight, you've been reading that letter since we got off the card. Something's clearly bothering you, and nothing spoils a good vacation more than a mopey friend.
Well, Twilight began, trying to choose her words carefully, trying to ignore the overly inquisitive stare of her friend mere inches from her face.
Does it strike you as weird that Princess Luna would invite us both out here for research purposes?
Twilight gestured a forehoof in front of them, inviting both their eyes to sweep over the view in front of them. The arcane manor was a true architectural masterpiece. Even Pinkie could appreciate that, with its sprawling gardens, ornate walls, and intricate sculptures. And that was to say nothing of its size. The manor house itself was an immense structure dominating over the landscape, with 4 floors visible from the outside, just because of the layout of the windows. If Pinkie had to guess, having little to no concept of measurements, she'd say it must be 1,000 acres. Twilight, on the other hand, knew for a fact that it was, in fact, roughly 70 acres, grounds and all.
And why did she really feel the need to send this letter through the mail?
Twilight continued, drawing Pinkie's attention back to the letter by brandishing it in her face.
Oh, Twilight, you worry too much.
Twilight wondered briefly if she even meant to do it, or if laughing was just a reflex for her.
She probably just didn't want to be a bother to Spike by sending through him, since she doesn't know him very well. That's...
Twilight began raising her hoof, only to have her rebuttal die in her throat.
Is actually a reasonable thought. What'd I tell ya?
Pinkie exclaimed, apparently bored of waiting, and started to bounce her way down the grave path leading up to the gates of the manor grounds.
There's nothing to worry about!
She called back over her shoulder.
Now come on! Last one to the gates of Baked Bed!
Twilight's mouth twitched as she tried to suppress the grin that was fighting to make its way onto her face. Instead, she just shook her head half exasperatedly, shoving the letter in her saddlebags and trotting to catch up with her bubbly pink friend. Pinkie threw another glance over her shoulder at Twilight, trying to catch up, clearly misinterpreting this as a serious attempt to meet her challenge. Pinkie picked up the pace, becoming nothing more than a pink blur dashing across the path. Twilight sighed in annoyance, but didn't realize that she had also run faster. It was only when she and Pinkie Pie were galloping neck and neck that she finally allowed herself to break out into a wide smile, throwing herself utterly into the game.
Careful, Twilight!
Pinkie shouted over her panting breath, a sly grin on her face.
We wouldn't want you to chip your page-turning hoof!
Twilight let out a bark of laughter, knowing full well it was a joke.
Coming from you? The closest
closest you come to running a race is sitting in a balloon.
Tough words coming from some pony hooves.
Pinkie called back suddenly, breaking into a sprint and leaving Twilight behind.
Eating my dust!
Oh, no, you don't, Twilight exclaimed, more to herself, spreading her wings. Pinkie looked back one last time as she neared the wrought iron gate, only to see a ball of lavender fur and feathers rush past her, skidding sharply to a halt in front of the gates. Pinkie trotted to a halt a couple meters from Twilight, who was now dancing on the spot, either out of a sense of victory or because her landing had set her hooves on fire. She wasn't quite sure.
Champion! Ouch! I am the champion!
Pinkie couldn't hold it in any longer. She burst into a raucous fit of laughter, collapsing to the ground where she continued to roll in hysterics. Only then did Twilight seem to catch on how silly she must have looked and ceased her victory chant, her face bright pink.
Yeah, laugh it up,
Twilight said in her best attempt at a neutral voice, although the slight cracking gave away that she too was at risk of cracking up. Pinkie bolted upright upon hearing this, springing to her hooves and walking purposely over to Twilight, whose face was now trembling with barely contained laughter.
Yeah, I suppose you're right.
Pinkie said in a mock wistful tone, punctuating her sentence with an exaggerated sigh.
Maybe I'm just being immature.
Quite right,
Twilight said curtly, trying not to look at Pinkie, knowing she was up to something.
After all, there's nothing funny in the slightest about singing champion!
Pinkie exclaimed, while breaking into a parody of Twilight's own ridiculous dancing.
I am the champion!
That was the tipping point for Twilight, who ended up doubled over with tears of laughter in her eyes as Pinkie's impersonation went on. Pinkie quickly stopped her act and returned to laugh alongside Twilight. How long did they stay there laughing? Neither of them were really sure. It could have been seconds, minutes, maybe even hours. But when they did at last stop, Twilight looked Pinkie straight in the eye, still smiling brightly, and said,
Never change, Pinkie.
Pinkie smiled back, her eyes shimmering, but she didn't respond. She didn't need to. Together, they turned to face the gate and the manor beyond, Twilight summoning her magic to swing them open before them.
Let's go,
Twilight said, her and Pinkie stepping forward onto the grounds. That's when they both felt as if their hearts stopped dead in their chests. Blood pounding in their skulls, the air squeezed from their lungs, their legs weak, collapsing beneath them. They looked at each other, their mouths opening, trying to desperately say something to one another, but to no avail. As they felt themselves slipping out of consciousness, they could distinctly hear, as if from very far away, the sound of the gates closing behind them.
I think they're coming around.
If they got a princess, oh God. Oh God! There has to be a way out of here!
Oh God.
Get a hold of yourself.
Wake up, you two!
Twilight and Pinkie's eyes snapped open simultaneously upon hearing the shout. Doing so immediately felt like a mistake, as their vision began shifting dangerously, giving them the distinct feeling that they were about to pass out again. It didn't last, however, and after a few painful seconds, Their surroundings began to swim into focus. They found themselves looking at each other across a table, each sitting slumped on a posh dining chair, casting their gaze around the long room they found themselves in. They noticed a number of ponies around them, some sitting in their own seats around the long dining table, others ambling about examining their surroundings. The room itself had a high vaulted ceiling with a crystal chandelier flooding the room with light. The floor consisted entirely of checked marble, and the walls made of wooden paneling. Twilight would bet any sum of bits the room they were in was one inside the arcane manor. Pinkie's eyes widened in surprise, and Twilight spun around in her seat, coming face to face with the figure. Some ponies you could see day in, day out, and still forget their face. Others could leave a mark after a single meeting. This pony was certainly one Twilight wouldn't be able to forget in a hurry. The azure coat and the aquamarine mane were identifiers enough without the star-adorned hat and cape.
Trixie!
Twilight exclaimed, rising unsteadily to her hoofs.
What are you doing here? Trixie wishes to know the exact same thing!
It was too much to hope Trixie's apparent change following their last meeting would be permanent, it seemed.
Trixie was summoned here under the pretense of obtaining ancient spellbooks. However, it would appear spellbooks meant drugging Trixie and locking her in a room with these imbeciles.
Trixie was gesturing to the rest of the ponies gathered in the room, few of which were actually paying attention to what Trixie was saying to be offended by it. But Twilight too had stopped listening, as the memories of what happened just before she passed out came flooding back to her. She spun around to face Pinkie, whose eyes were also wide with the apparent realization of their situation.
So, wait, you were knocked out as well?
Twilight asked, turning back to Trixie. Trixie rolled her eyes like she was dealing with someone else's foe.
That is what Trixie said, yes! From what Trixie has gathered, we were all lured here under some pretense or another, knocked out and awoken in this room.
It was only now, as Pinkie joined her, that they properly examined who all was in the room with them. Surprisingly, there were quite a few they recognized. Standing next to the door, occasionally giving it a small push, were Applejack's cousin Brayburn, alongside Soren the Wonderbolt. At the end of the room, examining what appeared to be a large blacked-out monitor mounted on the wall, was the Pegasus they vaguely recognized from the time they visited Rainbow Dash at the Wonderbolt Academy. From what they could remember, Rainbow had some fight with her over her reckless behavior, and she ended up expelled from the academy. Next to her was a scrawny earth pony stallion they recognized from Ponyville, wearing thick-rimmed glasses and large bow tie, neither of which helped him look less like a nerd. There was another pony there, but they were obscured from view by the other two. At the table itself, another handful of ponies sat scattered about. They noticed the timid fashion designer Rarity had helped in Manhattan, as well as the writer Trenderhoof, who despite their circumstances was talking animatedly with her. She, on the other hoof, was shrinking noticeably under his gaze. There was also Donut Joe, who was standing awkwardly behind a chair as if wondering whether he should sit down or not. Nurse Redheart, who looked to be massaging a headache, Cloud Chaser, who was chatting quite casually with Fleur de Lis, the famous model from Canterlot.
Don't forget him,
Trixie whispered uncharacteristically, tilting her head subtly behind them. Twilight and Pinkie both turned slightly so they could see who she was referring to. Every pony in the room seemed to have gravitated towards the end with the monitor. Every pony but one, who was sitting on his own at the opposite end of the room, watching the rest with undisguised contempt.
I see blue blood is still as pleasant as ever,
Twilight said icily, turning her attention away from the prince.
How long were we out? Trixie is unsure. Trixie believes we all began waking up around the same time, and that nurse was only awake a few minutes before you two.
Twilight nodded, seemingly lost in thought.
If that is all, Trixie is going to see if she can blast the door down.
With that surprisingly casual statement, she walked away, leaving Twilight and Pinkie standing alone.
I'm sorry,
Pinkie said quietly out of the blue, causing Twilight to look up in surprise.
I guess you were right about that letter being suspicious.
Pinkie attempted to give a weak smile, which ended up looking more like a grimace.
Don't worry, Pinkie. There's nothing stopping us from just teleporting out of here.
Oh yeah!
Pinkie exclaimed, brightening up instantly. She shuffled over, pressing up against Twilight, inviting her to cast the spell. Twilight shut her eyes and focused all of her energy to her horn, while picturing the manor gates where they had shared their laugh. Once she was satisfied she had drawn on enough magic to teleport them, she allowed herself to release it, only to fall to the ground, screaming in agony.
Twilight!
Pinkie screamed in horror, collapsing next to her and grasping her in her forehooves. All the ponies in the room stopped what they were doing when they heard the scream, and were now looking at them with fear and confusion. Some, like Soren and Nurse Redheart, rushing forward to try and help. The screams quickly ceased, however, replaced by heavy, labored pants.
What happened?
Redheart asked, trying her best at remaining calm while kneeling down to examine Twilight.
I don't know. She tried to teleport out of this room and then...
Magic overload, perhaps?
Redheart suggested, examining Twilight's horn while tentatively touching it with the tip of her hoof.
No. Something powerful is blocking my magic. Directing my magic output inwards instead.
Redheart flinched, apparently understanding the implications of what Twilight had said.
Pinkie, help me get her into a chair.
Pinkie obeyed without hesitation, pushing her head under one of Twilight's forehooves and lifting her up gently. Together, with Redheart, they returned Twilight to the seat where she had woken up and placed her down, trying their best to ensure she was comfortable.
Will she be all right?
Pinkie asked, struggling to keep her fear in check.
I think so. As an alicorn, she shouldn't be affected nearly as badly as your run-of-the-mill unicorn.
Pinkie nodded appreciatively, turning to leave Redheart to her examination, and ended up walking headfirst into another pony.
Ow! Sorry, my bad.
Pinkie said, massaging her head where they had collided.
No worries, Pinkie Pie. You know, for a nurse pony, you always did have your head in the clouds.
Pinkie stopped rubbing her forehead. She knew that voice. Opening her eyes, she looked up, greeted by the familiar sapphire mane, pearly white coat, and purple shades.
Maybe you were a Pegasus in a previous life.
Final Scratch continued, still in her usual upbeat tone despite their circumstances.
Final!
Pinkie exclaimed, a genuine smile forming on her face, rushing forward to embrace the unicorn.
How did I not see you before?
She asked, her eyes navigating around the room, looking for an explanation. She quickly found one when she saw the monitor at the end of the room, the pony that had been obscured from their vision previously, now gone from there entirely.
I'm like a ninja,
Vinyl said, politely pushing the overly attached pony off her.
How's your friend?
Pinkie stopped smiling instantly, turning to look at Twilight, only to be greeted by Nurse Redheart again, who was smiling warmly.
She'll be okay. Nothing that could keep the Princess of Magic down for long.
Pinkie grinned again, moving past Redheart back to Twilight, Vinyl following her closely. Twilight did indeed look a lot better. She still looked very woozy, but she didn't appear to be in any pain.
I guess whoever put us here doesn't want us getting out that easily,
Twilight said weakly as Pinkie approached.
I know what you mean. That door hasn't budged an inch no matter what we've thrown at it, and that includes that Brayburn guy.
Twilight looked over at Vinyl, surprised by her sudden appearance. Pinkie took note of this, quickly cutting in.
Twilight! You remember Vinyl Scratch, don't you? She lives in Ponyville. She does the music for a lot of my parties.
Oh yeah, I've seen her around, I think. I move around Equestria a lot for work, so it's not surprising if you haven't seen me out and about. No, wait! You were the DJ at my brother's wedding reception. Yeah, I was. That was one of the best gigs I ever did. Really got my name out.
Well, that's boring,
a voice said, causing every pony in the room to fall silent. For the voice had not come from any of them. Rather, it seemed to echo all around the room. It didn't even sound natural, neither masculine nor feminine. Rather, complete distortion in barely distinguishable audio form. It was then followed by a low, cracking noise as the monitor flashed into life, the plain black screen now replaced with a sea of grayscale noise.
I had hoped your first meeting would be a little more dramatic,
the voice continued, now apparently coming from the monitor itself.
Alas, beggars can't be choosers and all that.
Hey, buddy!
The cerulean Pegasus shouted out, having fallen to the floor out of shock when the screen came to life.
Who the heck do you think you are, locking us in this room?
Who am I? I am the mastermind.
The mastermind?
Trixie repeated, giving a little snort of laughter.
Someone's a little full of themselves.
She didn't seem to notice the looks every pony gave her.
Look who's calling the kettle black! You're full of yourself too, Trixie!
Say what you will, but I'm sure that if we are to live peacefully alongside one another, we will need to show one another some respect.
That comment wiped the smirk from Trixie's face, leading to an outbreak of low muttering between every pony in the room. Twilight and Pinkie simply shared a nervous glance, but didn't say anything.
Excuse me?
A quiet voice piped up. Everyone looked around trying to figure out where it came from, not realizing it came from the little earth pony with the ice blue hair until she spoke up once more.
But what exactly do you mean? Live alongside one another?
Why, that is the very reason I brought you all together here. So that we could all live together in this mansion forever.
That received an outraged response from almost every pony gathered. Even Blue Blood rose to his hooves and shouted out against this.
Are you really so dim-witted to believe you could keep me locked up in here for a week, let alone forever? As soon as my auntie sees that I am missing, the entire Royal Guard will be searching all of Equestria for me. They will storm this place, and you will pay for your lack of respect.
The voice didn't respond right away, instead breaking out into a fit of maniacal laughter.
Oh, Blue Blood, still still as naive as ever, it seems.
It replied at last, causing Blue Blood's cheeks to glow bright red.
The guards can come search this mansion all they want. They will find it completely empty.
But what about our homes? Our families will miss us. Do they mean nothing to you?
Yes, they mean nothing to me.
The room once more broke out into a panicked frenzy of discussion.
Oh, come now.
The mastermind said over the noise, effectively silencing them all.
Here you will have everything you desire to live out your lives in luxury and comfort. Isn't that what all ponies seek?
We want freedom!
Donut Joe shouted out, before looking away embarrassed when his outburst drew the attention of every pony in the room.
I see,
the voice said after a long period of static silence.
I offer you everything, and this is how you repay me.
The room tensed, afraid of what was coming.
Very well. If you want your freedom, then earn it.
The silence remained, but this time it was more curious than afraid.
I offer you a chance to win your freedom from this place. A simple game, but one that will require you to use every ounce of cunning you have, for the only way to win this game is to kill another pony in this room.
Pinkie and Twilight's eyes opened wide in horror. Every pony else had similar reactions, some shouting various exclamations and swears.
Fuck you! My auntie will find you and kill you!
My family will miss me!
I've got to find a way out of here.
What will the Wonderbolt say? I'm fucking screwed! The great and powerful Trixie needs to find a way out of here!
And not just kill,
the voice continued, ignoring the burst of reaction.
but get away with it too. If you can murder one other pony and convince every pony else you had nothing to do with it, then you will be allowed to leave this place and return to your former life. These are my terms. You can either play the game or accept your new lives here. The choice is yours. Just remember, not every pony around you will be so willing to let go of their freedom.
This comment sparked a wave of glances between each of the ponies gathered, checking for the slightest hint of malicious intent in one another's eyes.
Whatever your choice, I present you each with a welcoming present to aid you in your new lives.
With that, over a dozen brightly wrapped boxes flashed into existence around the table, inviting every pony to open them. There was one in front of Twilight, as well as another on the opposite side of the table she assumed was intended for Pinkie. Warily, she mustered her telekinesis, and upon finding it wanting to backfire, she reached out and grabbed Pinkie's present, bringing it over to her. Some ponies had already dived in, tearing the paper off and opening their box. Others were more hesitant about it. Twilight and Pinkie shared one last nervous glance before both tentatively opening their own box. Inside each box lay two objects, the first being a fairly ordinary key with a large metal key fob attached. The second was what drew the attention of every pony in the room. It appeared to be a metallic hoof cuff with two straps on one side and a small black screen on the other.
Within each of your boxes is a room key and a personal computer. If you attach this to one of your forehoofs, you will be able to use it to access data on your living accommodations, as well as your housemates.
Twilight and Pinkie obeyed and strapped the computers to their left forehooves, each one blinking to life immediately. Each screen showed a digital bird's-eye view map of the dining room, filled with various blinking dots which no doubt indicated the location of the others. As well as this, at the top of the screen, each of their names were displayed as well as some accolades. Twilight Sparkle, Princess. Pinkie Pie, Party Planner.
Well, I don't know about the rest of you.
The voice continued once every pony had secured their computer.
But I think we're going to have a lot of fun together.
This comment received a number of venomous glances at the monitor.
I think that leaves only one thing to be said.
A loud, creaking noise drew every pony's attention to the double doors that had been remaining stubbornly closed up until this point, now swinging slowly open.
Let the games begin.
I see blue blood is still as pleasant as a...
I bit my tongue.
Ow! Ow!
I think I'll be fine. I just bit it a little bit. Hey everyone, Agent Fluffy here, and thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. If you want to support me even more, feel free to support my Patreon. The links are right here.